Afternoon and welcome to the May 26, 2022 meeting of the Board of Library Trustees. I'd like to call the meeting to order and start by asking Francesca to inform the public on how they can participate in today's meeting, which is a hybrid meeting. People can participate in person in the council chambers or virtually. So if you could give an update on how that works, Francesca, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, if you are not joining us in person here in the council chamber, there are two ways to virtually participate in this meeting. You may join directly on Zoom Gov from your computer or mobile device, or you may call into the Zoom meeting. To join the meeting on Zoom, use the link or phone number on the agenda at isearchmonterey.org. To call in by telephone, dial toll-free 833-568-8864, enter meeting ID 161-352-8864, followed by the pound sign. If prompted to enter a participant ID, press pound. Detailed instructions on using Zoom are available at monterey.org/public meetings. To make a public comment, click on the raise hand button in the Zoom toolbar. If you called in by phone, raise your hand by dialing *9 and unmute yourself when called upon by dialing *6. Attendees will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Public speakers will be called on in the order of their hands raised. We ask that you please stay within the time limit, which will be shown on a countdown timer on the screen. Today's meeting is also streamed live on the city's YouTube account at youtube.com/City of Monterey with an approximate 10-second delay, and on Comcast channel 25 with up to a 90-second delay. If you plan to make a public comment, join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone and ensure you join in time to accommodate the delay. As always, we do look forward to receiving your public comment.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Then can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Vice Chair Falguth.
Present.
Trustee Joshi.
Present.
Library Trustee Moreau.
Here.
Library Trustee Petty.
Trustee Petty has been having some technical difficulties, and he was here before, and he'll be here soon, I'm sure, but he may not be here this second.
Okay, and Chair Thompson.
I'm here as well.
Oh.
Next item on our agenda is presentations, but before that, I believe Inga wants to introduce our new fund development assistant. So Inga, take it away.
Yes, so thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. I wanted to introduce you to Anne Jacobson, who is our new fund development assistant. So Anne, please say hello to the group.
Hi, group. Nice to put faces to names. I've been seeing a lot of your names, as I read various documents and I'm mucking around in the database. So I'm excited to be here and I look forward to becoming very competent soon.
So some of you may know Anne from her previous life where she was a librarian and then library manager at the Naval Postgraduate School. And we're just so lucky to have her at this point in her career where she's just really interested in helping out a cause that she believes in. So we're happy to have her here at the Monterey Public Library.
Yes, and we're so glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks, Inga.
And now I think we're ready for the presentation regarding the summer reading program. Would you like to introduce that, Inga?
Sure. So we have here Kim Smith, who is our library manager, and she's going to say a little bit about our summer reading program, and then we're going to turn it over to our librarian, Sarah Nolan, who is going to walk us through a quick slide presentation and tell us all about our wonderful plans that we have for the summer.
Bob looks like he's raising his hand. Do we want to check on Bob?
Yes, Bob.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, I just wanted you to know that I am here and I got put on as a panelist. First I was on, I could hear everybody, but you couldn't see or hear me. because I said here when you took roll. Now I'm on and you can hear me, but I don't know how to get my picture there. So you're gonna have to put up with the name until I can figure that out.
Okay, Francesca may be able to help with that too. I'm not sure.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Okay,
Great.
Very good. Well,
thank you. Sorry for interrupting, Sarah.
I think you were gonna
So
hear
we're really excited about our summer reading program this year. It's really coming together, thanks in large part to librarian Sarah's help. She's always been a huge coordinator for summer reading, and this year she's put all the pieces together. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah. She's our summer expert this year.
All right, thank you. So I have a slideshow for you, and we're going to do screen share, so hopefully you guys will be able to see it. All right. And from the beginning. All right, so looking okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this year, our theme is Read Beyond the Beaten Path. And we've really taken to having it be more towards camping. And so this particular graphic, the book that is a tent, is something that you will see often. This year, our program is going to be running from June 1st through July 30th. So it makes it really easy to remember. It's just June and July. And so starting off, traditionally, our summer reading program and many libraries' summer reading programs was just for children. But this time around, and within the last couple of years, really, we've been really trying to be active about having our teens and adults participate. Because reading's not just for children, and what we're really trying to say to a lot of people is about how children model behaviors of teens, parents, older siblings, just the people around them. And so it's really striving to normalize reading. And at the end of the day, everybody loves prizes. And so I'll walk you through our 3 programs. The very first one is for children. We have reading logs for pre-readers and readers. So it doesn't matter if they're reading on their own. It can count if they're being read to. And so on the next slide, I have an example of what our reading log looks like. But basically, they're reading for a total of 12 hours. And so every 30 minutes, they color in a tent. And then at the end of it, their incentive for this program is to pick out a prize book to keep, and they get an entry into our grand prize drawing. On the opposite side, and we'll actually skip right over there because it makes it a little easier to see. So the one with the red is the front part of it, and then the side on the back is a series of activities that they can be doing based off of a bingo card. And so these are all age appropriate activities that really encourage them to get outside and read and just really explore the world around them. And so for every time that they get a bingo, which is 5 in a row, then they'll get an extra entry into the prize drawings. And Kim's working on getting the rest of our prizes for the kids. I want to say there's like 6 different main types of grand prize drawings. And so we'll have quite a few winners at the end of summer.
Yeah, there'll be a variety of prizes based on like age group and interest. So they have an opportunity to try to win something they're really excited about.
Yeah. And if they do something called the blackout, which is all of the activities, they will get 12 extra entries. So the kids get really excited about having all the different raffle tickets that they can put in. And the other thing that we're doing this year is it's a grab and go. So this year we've decided to call it Take and Explore Kits, and our part-time children's librarian Peggy has been working really hard to be able to get different activity bags. And so you can see on the left-hand side, that's what it basically looks like. They're different activities each week, and we're making 100 bags per week. So there's going to be 8 of them total. And so you've got an example of the one that we're working on now, which is number 2, and there's 100 of them. That's a lot. So for each one of the activities, they're standalone ones, so they don't have to necessarily build on each week. So if a child misses a week, then that's totally okay. I would say that these ones are more focused for school-age children, and so the little ones probably aren't going to get too much out of it, but it's perfect for school-age children. And for our teen program, we have reading logs for them, and for the teens, they're supposed to read a total of 16 hours, and we're more interested in what they're reading. And so when we talk about reading, it can be audiobooks, it could be newspapers, journal articles, audio, or I said audiobooks, just basically any type of format. And so let's see. So this is what their reading log looks like. And so they've got all the different ones that they don't necessarily have to fill out each and every one of them, but they will get a chance to share what kind of things are of interest to them. And then on the second part over here is book picks by teens. They will be writing their names, and they get if they fill this out, they'll get a second entry into their prize drawing. And for teens, instead of physical items, they're going to be gift cards are going to be raffled off. And once they've finished their log, then they're able to come in and they'll be able to pick out their prize book. We have also added an option for the teens that if they aren't in the area and they're not able to come back into the library or Bookmobile, then they can always take a picture of their reading log and email it to us at the reference desk. So that way they can still participate. And I would say at the bottom, we have a teens only camp party. That's going to be the one in-person program that we have for them. And we're doing that based off of kind of an advisory one. So I will have 2 events in June where I work with the teens and we kind of plan out their party. And then in July, on the 22nd, then we'll be doing a camp party in our community room. And for the adults, we have our bingo card. And so of course when they finish, they get a prize book and an entry into the gift basket prize drawing. Currently, I have about 3 baskets that are worked out, and I'm looking at possibly making a 4th. And so this is a little bit similar to the children's ones, their bingo card, but the activities are a little bit more geared specifically towards reading. And that's in direct response to our feedback that we've gotten from other adult summer reading participants. And so those are the reading logs. That's kind of the gist of the program. And then we also have performers and library programs that are happening. And so our kickoff party is going to be on Saturday, June 4th from 11 to 1 p.m. And that's Camp Out with MPL. We're going to be over at Colton Hall Lawn. And Kim's got some cool tents that she's purchased. And we're going to have live music and some snacks. Basically encouraging people to be outside and then also be signing up for the summer reading program. And then we have we've adapted our book club for June and July. And so those ones are specifically books that encourage they basically want to make you go outside. So we've got the guide for Peter Heller. And the second one is The Wilderness Idiot by Ted Alvarez. And then these are the programs that are the performers that we've booked for June and July. So we've got Mike the Magician. I'm partial to this one. I dig dinosaurs and meet a paleontologist. That's my little brother. And so he and I are going to do a program on Colton Hall Lawn where he brings in like some dinosaur fossils, and he basically answers any questions that people might have about paleontology. And then afterwards, I'll do a story time and a excavation activity. So that'll be the program by the Nolans. And then Kim got this one. I was really excited, and I know a few other staff are excited that we're going to be having the Equine Healing Collaborative join us. That's going to be in our back parking lot. And so we're going to get to see the therapy herd. And then a crowd favorite has always been NorCal Bats. So we will be having live bats in our community room in July. And honestly, I think that might be the first program that we do in the community room since the closure. So that's pretty cool. And then to close off the summer reading, we've got Python Ron. And this one is going to be at both of our Bookmobile stops that really lend themselves to having programs. So the La Mesa Community Center and Montecito Park. And then at Colton Hall on the 30th, we're going to have Happy Birds. And actually this photo is one from a previous presentation that they've done with us. I want to say that might have even been at La Mesa. But yeah, so that is the gist of summer reading this year. And I am free to answer any questions that people have.
One other thing I wanted to add is that funding for summer reading for children and teens this year was provided by very generous donors, Richard Carr and Barbara Schilling. So we're really grateful for their support and for making it possible for us to have such a great summer reading program this year.
Well, outstanding. Thank you, all three of you, Inga, Kim, and Sarah, for the great presentation and the outstanding program. Do any of the trustees have questions or comments about the presentation? Bob, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you. First, I just wanted to say, Sarah, that looks out of this world. I mean, it just looks fantastic. And what I wanted to ask you is, in order to come to all the events, especially the ones that are outside in public, not inside in the community room, but the ones that are outside on the Colton Hall lawn, does one need to be signed up ahead of time for the entire summer reading program? Or can somebody just walk by, for example, on Wednesday the 8th at 10:30 and enjoy The Magician?
Yeah, so those ones are ones that that anybody can come to. There were a couple of them that we added for all ages because we think that adults and teens might enjoy those ones as well. But they don't have to be signed up for the summer reading. Of course, we will have a opportunity for people to sign up at that time. But one of the advantages of having it out on the lawn and having those programs outside is that it does draw in more people.
Well, and since I personally deal much more often with adults than with children or even teens, can I direct people to something? Can I direct other adults to someplace on our website where they could get all the details of the adult,
Yeah.
portion of it versus the other portions?
Yes, so there will be stuff that has the different events, and I haven't made it up to the website just yet.
Well, be sure you send a group blast email to all of us so that at least I can see this, because well, I've just been receiving from adults whom I know nothing, and I mean that sincerely, nothing but compliments about how the library is progressing with adding programs, with the reopening, with just about everything. So I would like to be able to direct them, the adult population that I know anyway, to the specific information for them to enjoy all these things.
Certainly.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Any other trustee comments or questions? If not, Francesca, could you see if there's any public comment on item number 1?
Yes, to make a public comment, please raise your Zoom hand or dial *9. There are no public comments, Chair Thompson.
Okay, very good. Well, again, thank you very much, Sarah and Kim, for the wonderful presentation and particularly for the actual programming work that you're doing. It sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your night. I got to get back on desk.
Okay, fair enough. The next item on our agenda is the consent calendar, which today includes items 2, 3, and 4, with item 2 being approval of the minutes of April 28th. Number 3 being an appropriation of donated grant and donated funds, and item 4 being a second reading and adoption of revisions to library board policies 110, 120, and 430. Anybody want to pull any of these items or have a question about the consent items? Seeing none, Francesca, could you see if anyone from the public wishes to speak or ask for one of these items to be pulled from the consent agenda?
To do so, please raise your Zoom hand or dial *9. There are no comments at this time, Chair Thompson.
Very good. Again, any discussion from any of the trustees or anybody wish to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move to approve. Second.
Very good. And Bob, did you have a question or were you going to make a motion?
I was going to do what Marcia and Jen already did, so ignore me.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Francesca, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Vice Chair Felgood,
Yes.
Trustee Joshi,
Yes.
Trustee Moreau,
Yes.
Trustee Petty,
Yes.
and Chair Thompson.
Yes, motion carries unanimously. And that's the end of the consent agenda. The next item on our agenda is public comments, which is an opportunity for a member of the public to address the library board on any item that is not on our agenda for today's meeting. Francesca, could you see if there's any public comments for today's meeting?
Yes, and as a reminder, we do encourage members of the public to join our meeting via Zoom. You will be connected live in real time to the meeting. To make a public comment, please raise your Zoom hand, or if you are connected by phone, dial *9. There are no public comments, Chair Thompson.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Francesca. The next item on our agenda is the public appearance items, and we're getting a lot of feedback. Any suggestions, Francesca, on this feedback issue?
I'll turn off the microphone nearest to me. That might play a part, so we'll see.
Okay, we'll see if that helps or not. I think so far it may be. but we'll see. Okay, moving on to public appearance. The first item there.
Jim, we have
Yes.
a motion on the table, I believe, to approve the consent agenda item.
I thought we'd already called the roll. Did we not?
Did we? Okay.
Francesca, did we call the roll?
Yes, it is complete.
Okay, thank you. I thought so, but I wasn't sure.
Well, I was confused because we just asked for public comments on it. And normally you do that before you took the roll and voted on it. So.
No, that was
flip-flop.
that was the overall public comments for items that are not on the agenda.
Oh, not for that. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd already done it for item number for the consent agenda.
Right. Okay.
Very good. Thank you for trying to make sure we're doing everything properly. I appreciate that. Item number 5 is an update from the Ad hoc Library Director Recruitment Committee. And I had a comment I wanted to make on that. And then we're fortunate to have Pam Derby with us today again. She, as you recall, is the executive recruiter for CPS HR Consulting, and she's going to be giving us a bit of an update on the process. But before I do that, because last time I forgot until later in the meeting, I wanted to confirm the dates that we were talking about previously for the final, at least the tentative dates. Everything is always a little subject to change in this kind of environment, I think. But hopefully we're looking at the final interviews of the top probably 2 or 3 candidates with the Board of Library Trustees and some advisors. And we had talked before about several days, the last week of June. And at this point, after talking to Pam and her team, we think June 30 is the best day to focus on for those finalist interviews. So at this point, I'd like to ask the trustees to be sure to keep the entire day of June 30th available. It may well just be in the afternoon for us. But for this point, for now, if you could keep the entire day of June 30 available on your calendar, and the other days that week that we had previously tentatively reserved, you can now go ahead and release those to other activities you might have. So for now, just keep June 30 reserved for the final interviews. And with that, I'd like to ask Pam to give us a bit of an update on how we're doing with the recruitment and the stakeholder interview process.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I apologize if I start coughing. I'm recovering from COVID. So I'm have a little bit of a cough when I start talking. But since the last time I spoke with you, our team has spoken to or shared the survey link with almost 40 individuals that had been identified by all of you to get feedback. Staff is working on putting all of those narratives together. Those are long conversations, and so we try to put it in some bullet form type of format that's a little bit easier for people, and to try and put themes together so that it's not quite as cumbersome. But we'll be providing that with the client report initially to the chair, to the selection committee, not the selection committee, but the recruitment committee, and then to the rest of the board members. Once we got all of you had the opportunity to see the recruitment brochure before it was posted. It has been posted since the 2nd of May. Ads have been appearing, American Library Association, California Library Association, the Journal of Library Journal. That's one that Susan really thinks is one of the best that people see it. I know that people were talking about it at the conference. And so it was shared on LinkedIn with at least about 10,000 individuals we know. We did an initial email blast to more than 1,500 librarians around the country. And Susan has been conducting additional follow-up outreach with individuals that she believes are going to be a good fit for Monterey. In this time, we have already received 17 resumes, which is a good response for, and of those, at least 10 are highly qualified, with 5 or 6 already being directors of other libraries. And so we're very pleased with the response at this point. Susan is starting to schedule screening interviews with those individuals so that we can get a client report out and speak with the recruitment committee the week of the 6th, so that they can identify the candidates for their first round of interviews. It looks like that will be either June 15th or June 17th. I'm working with Susan right now to we'll talk about that again with the recruitment committee as well, but it will be one of those 2 days. Our anticipation is there will be at least 5 or 6 individuals that the recruitment committee will decide to interview, to then narrow it down to those top 2 or 3 that we then move to reference checks, and then those individuals would interview with the full board on June 30th. Pardon me. We have just done the first round of semifinalist interviews for the Richmond Library, and they were very pleased with their group. They have identified a top 3 that they're going to interview. And the interesting thing is that there's only one individual in that group that is also a candidate would be a top candidate, most likely for the Monterey group. So it's nice to know that you're attracting your own really strong group of candidates. And so with that, we'll be also sending the recruitment team a set of draft questions for them to look at over the next week or so while we're getting prepared for that client report and those interviews. And then we'd be working on questions for the full board, how that would look. But we feel very good about what the response has been, and it closes on Tuesday, as of course Monday is the holiday, so it doesn't close until Tuesday. And then we'll be sending out a report on Wednesday to the recruitment committee. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but things have gone well as far as the process.
Well, very good. Thank you for that update. And feel free to get a glass of water if you need while we're having a little discussion here. Do any of the trustees have questions for Pam or comments? If not, I do have one question myself. Pam, in your experience, do a lot of candidates wait until the last couple of days prior to closing to submit their applications? And therefore, are you expecting we may get quite a few more in the next 5 days?
Yes, absolutely. And I will say, though, that with librarians, they are much more organized than most department heads. And stronger candidates do apply at the beginning, whereas with public works directors, say the best candidates all apply at the very end. But that is not the case with library directors. So there are already very strong candidates in the pool, but I would anticipate a few more, pardon me, and especially since this is a holiday weekend, they all think, oh, I've got another day. So that'll play into it as well. But there will be more candidates over the weekend, I'm sure.
Very good. And as a former city manager, I would like to acknowledge and agree with your comment that librarians tend to be much more organized than other city employees. Any other questions or comments from the trustees? Bob, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if it's worthy of discussing now, or Pam, if you even have any response to this, but I found it interesting that you mentioned that within the group of candidates that look like strong candidates, a bunch of them are already library directors, and therefore to some level or to some extent, taking the Monterey job would be a lateral move from director of X library to director of the Monterey library. And then you said there were a bunch of others who were not already library directors, so I assume they're high in the administration of wherever library they are working at. And so for them, this would be an upward move and a significant progression in their career in library work. And I don't know the answer, and maybe this is just part of the discussion we'll have as a board, but I'm not sure whether on the face of it, I like the idea of somebody moving over from director to director, because they're already a director and they may be somewhat more set in their opinions and ways. at that level versus somebody who's moving up and they see this as a stepping stone and they might bring a lot of much more innovation. And I don't know, I could sit here and make arguments for either side of the coin, but so I'm just throwing that out there as something that, you know, is on my mind, either for our future discussion or if Pam or you, anybody has a reply.
So what I would say is that oftentimes those who are already directors, it may be that they're directors in a very small place, or that there's something about Monterey and the things that Monterey is doing that really attract them to the position. It's not always about, I've even seen directors in all types of positions decide, you know, even maybe take a, you know, salary cut, or because they want to be, it's like, this is a perfect location for me. I love what this organization is doing and I want to be a part of it. And sometimes some of the assistant directors, they may be from very large, you know, systems, and you know, sizing down and having to wear as many hats as they would have to wear in a library the size of Monterey might be, you know, tougher for them actually. So it's, you know, it's really about the individuals and what their motivation is. And until we've spoken with them, we really won't know. And Inga probably has some great thoughts on it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Inga, I would just like to say from my perspective, I think we should be open to either type of background. I think either could work. And I think it's probably individual specific, as I think Pam is kind of suggesting. But Inga, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I'd like to say that there are lots of very innovative library directors out there who would be welcome to come here and would probably have some great ideas that they could introduce to us. And so a big plus for people who are already library directors. And similarly, there can be folks who are at that stage in their career that this is a perfect next move for them. And so I think, yeah, it really is going to depend on the conversations that we have with them and finding sort of the best fit for where we are in our development as a library and where we want to head in the future.
Very good. Other comments or questions? And I should have asked for Marcia right off the bat as my fellow recruitment committee member, if you wanted to make some summary comments also.
No, but I just had a question about the survey. So right now the survey has been circulating for a while, and it seems like the results of the survey may help us with developing the question, the interview questions, and getting a sense of what people say they're looking for. So the summary of that survey will be released along with the client report. Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I can add something about the survey. So we haven't posted it to our website yet, and we're sending out an e-blast today to over 8,000 addresses, and it will include a link to the survey and, of course, an announcement that I'm retiring, because we didn't want people to be caught cold, that they didn't realize I was retiring and they're being asked, what kind of library director do we need? So anyway, so that email e-blast is going out today, and then the city communications director is planning to include a post in their next e-blast as well.
Yeah, and if I recall, I believe the survey is going to be open until next Tuesday was the idea. So the same closing date as the application date. So that should work fine. Okay, any other questions? If not, Francesca, could you see if anyone has public comment on item number 5?
Yes, to make a public comment, please raise your Zoom hand or dial *9. There are no public comments, Chair Thompson.
Thank you, Francesca. Any further discussion among the trustees? Any last, Harish, go ahead.
I was curious if the people are mostly in-state or there are people even from out of state who are interested in the job. Just curious.
It's a mix of both, but it is more California than out of state at this point.
Any other questions? Any last comments you'd like to make, Pam?
I don't think so unless anybody has any other questions, but we'll look forward to getting you those materials next week, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
And we wish you health.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Soon.
Hope you can
Excuse
get some good rest. I hadn't realized that you had caught COVID, so my sympathies.
Thank you. Well, between allergies and COVID, it has been a tough month, frankly, but
I can only imagine, and a lot of traveling and work as well.
on top of that. So thank you very much, but everyone have a good evening.
Okay, thanks again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on then, the next item on our agenda is item number 6, an update on the annual budget process. Inga, could you bring us up to date on the budget process? You're muted, Inga, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Maybe I could see a show of hands. How many trustees attended the budget primer meeting last week? Okay, because I didn't want to repeat a bunch of stuff that you've already heard. But basically, last week at the city council meeting, the evening session, the city council received a primer on the budget process and where the city is in preparing a proposal for the council consideration, which will be on June 7th. And so first, our city manager went through all the wonderful things that had happened to help with the budget. There was a increase in TOT that the voters passed. There was a increase in sales tax that the voters passed. And sorry, now I'm losing my voice. So there were some things that looked very positive for our budget. Then, of course, there was the devastating impact of COVID-19, devastating for our economy in particular, because we're so dependent on tourism. But the numbers are rallying and tourists are coming back. And so everybody was feeling pretty optimistic. So the challenging news is that when we look at our budget, excuse me, when we look at our budget.
Would you like to stop and get a glass of water or anything, Inga?
I'll drink my tea.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Feel free to take a sip here and there.
Okay, thank you. So, so the upshot of it all is that the amount, even if we didn't have any budget increases, the revenue projections are below the expenditure projections. So there's a shortfall. So they've been working really hard to find ways to adjust for that. But essentially all of the departments, oh, and then on top of it, of course, this is all of the bargaining groups are revisiting their contracts. It's time to renew contracts. So there are negotiations that are taking place, and we don't yet know the results of those negotiations. But of course, employees are negotiating for, you know, important wage and benefits and so forth. So that's a good process, but it leaves it a little bit uncertain as to where we're going to land. So as a result, all of the department heads had been forewarned that we're not going to be getting the funding that we requested, the full 100% funding we requested for our budgets. So in the case of the library, we actually had a meeting with the city manager, assistant city manager, and finance director was there too. No. I'm trying to recount. No, was not there.
She couldn't make it.
Okay, so Chair Thompson and Vice Chair Felguth, we had a meeting with the city manager and assistant city manager ahead of time, and they wanted to tell us in person, well, by Zoom, that the positions that we requested, they won't all be funded. And so the positions that we requested, just to remind you, was a full-time children's librarian, a full-time teen librarian, because we don't have either of those positions now. What we're doing is using part-time staff to provide those services. And then we had also requested that the bookmobile position become a full-time position. Right now it's a 3/4 time position, and it had previously been full-time. And we also requested that our acquisitions position go from 3/4 to full-time. And we had a full-time position there before, and it actually had been at a higher classification previously with more responsibilities. But anyway, so they said, well, we're not going to be able to do all of that. And so we talked to them about some options and so forth. And it doesn't look like we will be receiving funding for both of the librarian positions, probably just one, but we might have reached a compromise where in the city manager's packet, he will be proposing that both of the regular part-time positions become full-time. But he also warned us, and he warned me in particular, that between our meeting and the meeting of the city council, all kinds of other details might come up and so forth, and he might need to change the plan there. So that's sort of where we left it. And then, but I would love to have Chair Thompson or Vice Chair Felguth chime in a little bit more to bring us up to date, if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you very much, Inga. I thought that was a good summary. And we did talk at some length with the city manager and assistant city manager about the importance of the 4 positions that we'd requested, and it was actually a very bare bones request. And so I think we made a fairly strong case to go a little further than they were planning on going. But again, it's still a moving target, and so it still remains to be seen what the city manager's budget recommendations will be to the city council. But I'm somewhat optimistic that we'll get quite a bit of what we requested, even though probably not all of it. So I don't know, Jen, could you add to that?
No, I think you pretty well summarized it. We gave us as good as we got from them. We just kept pushing, and we were able to get a few concessions. Inga came up with some good ideas. So it could have been a lot grimmer. I'm still not happy. I would have liked to have gotten everything we asked for, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But we were able to salvage some things.
Right. And I would remind us that last year, when we were planning a 2-year budget, we had asked for just the one full-time librarian and one of the RPTs becoming full-time, with the thinking that that would be, because we're phasing staffing in, with the thinking that depending on how well the budget was doing, we might ask for more. And so this is kind of the wake-up call where we're informed, though even it looks pretty rosy, we're not quite there yet. So the idea is we're going to need to continue phasing in positions. So they're not completely off the table, but we'll have to see. There's always if we don't get everything, which doesn't look like we'll get everything, there's the mid-year budget adjustment, and that might be a possibility, or we'll look at the following year to bring back another full-time librarian.
Yeah, one other additional comment I wanted to make is that in terms of the employee negotiations, particularly the salary negotiations, the fact that inflation has been so high this past year, I think is making those labor negotiations even more difficult than normal, probably. So I'm sure that's hard to determine at this point, how much needs to be set aside for that. And that, as a former city manager and assistant city manager, I can appreciate the difficulty of trying to come up with a proposed budget when you have some things that are still up in the air that are very significant cost-wise. So I did want to add that further comment. Marcia, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted a clarification. So I think what you said, Inga, is that if everything goes the way we would like it to go, we would end up with the bookmobile position full-time, because and the acquisitions one full-time, and then a children's librarian. And the teen one would be put off to the next.
Yeah, I think things are still a little iffy, but
Right.
that's where we think they're probably headed.
Right, and I should point out that we still would have on part-time dollars for bringing in somebody who has teen librarian skills. But as we know, it's much harder to find somebody who has teen expertise who wants to work part-time than it is to recruit for a full-time position. But it isn't as if we wouldn't have anybody.
Right. And so sort of follow up, and maybe this is the next agenda item, but I know that you're recruiting now for a reference and children's librarian on call. So how will that work if this gets funded? But will you close that recruitment and or that?
So we always like to have a pool of on-call librarians that act sort of as subs most of the time when we're fully staffed. So if somebody's on vacation or somebody is on jury duty or something like that, we can call on the on-call librarians. So we have greater need right now to cover desk hours, especially with our local history librarian leaving for that promotional opportunity up in Oregon. So with that librarian leaving, and then one of our standard on-calls is going to be away for 2 months, and then another one is going to be gone for a month during the summer. So we just knew that we needed to beef up the on-call pool.
Go ahead, Marcia, and then Bob.
Yes, last part of that. So the history, you have permission to go ahead and fill the vacant position for the history librarian.
So I would say that's part of the next report.
Oh, okay. We'll talk about that. Okay.
But you can give the quick response to that.
The quick response is yes. In fact, that position is has been posted, and it closes on the first week of June. And so it's going to be a full-time position. We're really excited.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That position is moving forward.
Thank you, Marcia. Bob. You're muted, Bob.
I think maybe in the discussion following Marcia's questions, you answered what I was going to ask, but just to clarify in my brain, if we receive funding for the positions, as Inga said, city manager laid out, and it was one of the full-time librarians, I was going to ask, how do we pick which one it is? And I assume it's up to us to decide whether we want to use that full-time slot and fill the teen one or fill the children's one. And has any thought been given to, two part-time ones using the same number of dollars, but having two people and they each have sort of a focus rather than only having one?
Go ahead, Inga. Would you like to?
So I would say that I have been recommending to you that if we only get one, it would be the children's librarian. And the idea there is that often a children's librarian can also do teen programming.
That's what I was thinking, yes.
And then also some of our other librarians have some experience in teen programming. And so there can be kind of a team effort for the teen programming. But we really want to get that early literacy going back up to speed again. And so that would be the priority that I recommend. And as far as it seems, it's so logical that you could take one full-time position fully benefited, cut it in half and get two part-timers, but it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. The city doesn't do 20-hour-a-week benefited positions anymore, and a 3/4 position is more than half the cost of one full-timer.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work very well.
So administratively, we would sort of end up with teen with all these, several people working on teen stuff, And the new full-time librarian would be focusing considerable proportion of his or her time on the children's programs.
Correct. And I would
Okay.
have to say again, it will be dependent somewhat on the pool of applicants that we receive. Sometimes there are teen librarians who've been working as teen librarians who've had experience as children's librarians and can do,
Sure.
a good job still with children, but their passion and their love is for teens. So, I think that it will depend on the pool.
But it sounds like that's the best way to split up what we may get. And since you have especially other people on staff who could contribute to the teen activities, then like I said, it'd almost be like teen, and then a new one focusing on children. Thank you. That clarifies things.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. Other questions? Harish, anything you'd like to add, Jen? Okay, Harish, did you have any questions? Are you okay? Okay, very good. I don't believe we've asked for public comment on this item yet. Francesca, could you see if there's any public comment on item number 6?
Yes, to make a public comment, please raise your Zoom hand or dial *9. Chair Thompson, there are no public comments.
Okay, thank you, Francesca. Is there any other board discussion or comments about the update on the budget process? If not, moving on then to the next portion of our agenda, which is the informational reports and staff comments. The first item in that section of the report is item 7, to receive an update on library staffing, which we've already touched on a little bit. But Inga, could you give us a little fuller update on the library staffing situation?
Sure. So lots of recruitment going on. Our Bookmobile Coordinator position. So I guess let's just look at packet page 47. So we have some vacancies, and I'm going to update you on what's happening with those vacancies. So for the Bookmobile Coordinator position, which is currently funded as a regular part-time, which means 30 hours a week, partial benefits, the oral panel was held on Tuesday, and so that's like the first round of interviews, and there were 5 folks that are going to the next level, which is a departmental interview. And so Francesca's been scheduling those, and I believe they're going to be taking place next week. So that's exciting. And so we hope to have that position filled soon, and then we'll have somebody in place. Then the reference and local history librarian, that's the position that Sean just vacated. And that position, the recruitment closes on the 7th, but we're excited to have that position moving forward, because we were a little worried with the budget situation that one might not move as quickly as we'd hoped. So that will be a full-time librarian. Of course, we just heard a briefing about the Library and Museums Director position. Fund Development Coordinator. So that is a part-time position. And as we know, Mary Jane Perna is re-retiring, but around and available for guidance and input and so forth for a little while longer. But that position we've advertised, and we're still waiting to receive more applications. So we're not at the interview stage yet with that recruitment. And we have gotten some feedback that for the skill set we're looking for and the hourly salary wage that we're able to pay, it's going to be a challenge to fill that. And I think we knew that going into it. We were just very lucky that we had found somebody with Mary Jane Perna's experience who was looking for an opportunity to give back. But now with her retiring, we'll see what happens next. Then library page. So we had not actually, we had budgeted for library pages, but then we had not filled that. And that's again hourly. We hadn't filled that because our volunteers were working so diligently at shelving and pulling holds and so forth, but they are burning out, as understandable after 2 years of doing all of that work. And so we're bringing in some pages, and we have conducted the interviews, checked the references. Pages are also tested for their ability to put things in order alphabetically and by the Dewey Decimal number system. And so we have a couple of finalists now, and it's just a matter of working out the details, hopefully, to move those forward. And so we hope to have a couple of folks on board very soon. And recent vacancies that we filled. So we have brought in some new this year, but some of them are familiar faces, some new sort of on-call folks to work as library assistants at our desk. And then you met Anne, who was introduced at the beginning of the meeting, who's our new fund development assistant working part-time. And then you haven't met yet, likely, our new communications specialist, who's working 10 hours a week. And that's Ilana Enten, and we'll get an opportunity to meet her at some point, but she's been doing a great job. So one of the things that Mary Jane had been so helpful with is draft. In addition to her main focus, which was fund development, she did a lot of drafting of press releases and drafting of letters and she worked with us on our e-blast, but that's something that our communication specialist is going to be providing support with. And also a goal, which has been one for a long time, is to have a communications plan. And so she's working with me on a communications plan, which is very exciting as well. So that's where we are, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Inga. Any trustee questions for Inga on that report? Marcia.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the Bookmobile Coordinator. So you hire the Bookmobile Coordinator, and then that becomes full-time. Do you have to do another whole search, or do you just ask the person who's hired if they'd like to become full-time? How does that work?
Right. So the city has done it a couple of different ways, and we're checking on that. Back when we started advertising this position, we didn't realize that it would be taking the amount of time that it is to get this position filled. And so it seemed like we would have somebody on board working 30 hours a week for a while. But anyway, best case scenario, the person that we hire is fine with full-time work as well. In fact, we'll be checking on that with our interviews. And then they can just transition into full-time. Otherwise, we would do what's called an internal recruitment, where we invite the incumbent and then any other city employees who are interested in a full-time Bookmobile position to apply. And then we select the best candidate from that process.
I see. So people who are part-time in the library could apply for that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, other questions? If none, Francesca, could you see if there's any public comment on item number 7?
Yes, to make a public comment, please raise your Zoom hand, or if you are connected by phone, dial *9. There are no public comments, Chair Thompson.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion or questions from the trustees? Seeing none, let's move on then to item number 8, the financial report. Anything you'd like to highlight on packet page 49, Inga? Or 50, I guess it is.
Actually, no, I wasn't planning on pointing anything out, but I'm happy to answer any questions if people have.
Okay. Looks like our expenditures are well below the 83.3%. That would be the percentage of the fiscal year that's been completed. So that looks good. Any other questions any of the trustees have? If not, Francesca, could you see if anybody has a public comment on item number 8?
Yes, To make a public comment, please raise your Zoom hand or dial *9. Chair Thompson, there are no public comments.
Okay, any further discussion of this item? Bob?
I want to make a foolish statement again. Most of mine are, but yeah, as Jim pointed out, the one thing I noticed too was that we were sort of behind the pace in spending our money as the 12 months comes and goes. And it's foolish to expect any of that to roll over to the next year.
Well,
I mean, you use it, if you don't use it, you lose it.
that's true. If it's general fund money, if we don't spend it, then it goes into a pool, a year-end pool, and then it's applied towards various projects and so forth. There's a process where the city council helps decide on how best to use those funds based on the city council's priorities. However, the trust fund money, it goes back into our library trust fund pool. And what I typically do is, because much of that money was donated with restrictions, like money that was donated specifically for collections, but we didn't spend it all. In that case, then I go back to city council and ask them to reappropriate those funds for the new fiscal year.
Very good. Any other questions or discussion? If not, moving on to item number 9, the statistical report. Anything you'd like to highlight there, Inga?
Nothing. I just would be happy to entertain questions.
Okay, very good. Any questions on the statistical report? Bob?
Yeah, it's not a question, but I would just like to commend everybody who's especially been continuing and expanding the per event attendance at the adult programs, because this past year there were just over 100 programs and over 2,100 participants. 2 years ago, there were twice as many programs and almost exactly the same number of participants. So what that means is we've almost doubled the number of participants per adult event. And so based on that data, I just wanted to make a general kudo to everybody that has been involved with the maintenance and, dare I say, innovation and expansion of the adult programs.
Very good. Thank you. I'd also just like to comment that the volunteer hours for April at 388 still is a very good number. And it's higher than our pre-pandemic number for the similar month of April 2019. And so to thank Sarah for coordinating that program, and particularly thank the volunteers who continue, even though they've been through a lot the last couple of years, helping keep us stay afloat. They're continuing to work with us, and we sure appreciate that. Any other trustee questions or comments? If not, Francesca, could you see if there's any public comment on item number 9?
Did Jennifer have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say it was really nice to see the statistics rebounding.
Very good. Thank you.
And I would say that when you look at our statistics, keep in mind that we're only open 40 hours a week, whereas pre-pandemic it was 52. And I think when you take that into consideration, our attendance or visits is lower, of course. But I think it's something at 61% or so. And then our materials borrowed is pretty good, considering that that our hours have been reduced.
Yeah, I actually looked at those percentages, so just to piggyback on that, and the exact percentage from April 22 compared to April of 19 is 53% as high a visitation, but 66% of the circulation. So we continue to have more circulation per visit than we did pre-pandemic. And if we were open more hours and had more programming, I'm sure it would be even higher. Okay, going back then to public comment, Francesca, I don't believe we've asked yet for public comment on item number 9.
To make a public comment, please raise your Zoom hand, or if you are connected by phone, dial *9. Chair Thompson, there are no public comments.
Thank you, Francesca. Then moving on to, first, any other comments or questions on the statistical report? Seeing none, then let's move on to trustee comments, starting with Trustee Petty.
I have one question and then one want to share a comment. Inga, is the rumor correct that you're going to be with us through the end of July?
Yes,
Thank
so
you.
that's right. Wanted to stay through summer reading and July 31st. Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I thought and hoped and was happy to have heard, and I want to just confirm that. And I just want to share with the rest of the board again how, well, I had a gentleman, let's say I was talking to him last week, and he knows I'm on the board, and he said, boy, he said, I had to go into the Monterey Library. My wife had a book on hold there, and he is a PG resident, and he went in there and he said the book was right there, and I was able to get it and check it out. And he said, in our library cards, I guess they had Monterey library cards for some reason, because you can use your PG card and get a Monterey book and vice versa. But at any rate, he had they had Monterey library cards. He said, I went in there and I went to the librarian at the front desk, and she, before I could bat an eye, she made up 2 brand new library cards for my wife and for me. And it was just a fantastic, wonderful, efficient experience. And so I got that feedback from one of the citizens of a neighboring city. I wanted to share it because I think it, well, that's the kind of public image that we really like to see and hear about. And, you know, the more times we experience feedback that supports what we're doing, even obliquely, I want to share it.
Very good. Thank you, Bob. Trustee Joshi, any comments?
I'm looking forward to this summer reading program being a success. I really like the presentation and wanted to say that.
Very good. Thank you, Harish. Trustee Mora.
I just want to say that after this meeting, I'm feeling much more hopeful about the way things are going with recruitments and new positions, even though the budget haggling isn't finished, but it looks very promising, and recruitment's coming along. So it gives us all a lot of hope for the future.
Very good. Thank you. And Vice Chair Felguth.
I'm just really optimistic of the direction in which we're going. A lot of exciting things on the horizon. The summer reading program looked quite ambitious, and I like the fact that it's multi-generational. I think that's really genius. Cool stuff there. Excited about the new recruitments and hopeful that things don't go south on the budget for us. And already starting to mourn the loss of Inga. Gonna miss you.
Thank you.
Well said, Jennifer. And I just have one update. At our last meeting, we talked about the library personnel rules, which has been kind of an ongoing saga for quite some time. And my understanding is that at either the first or the second meeting in June, the human resources, the new human resources director, I guess, because they're having a transition also in human resources department head, will be taking an item to the city council to amend the city code chapter 25 with the sorts of revisions that we had thought were important to have done prior to modifying the library personnel rules to basically delete them as a separate set of rules and replace them with a reference to the city code rules once that's been adopted. So it's going a little slower than I had hoped, but it looks like it will probably happen in June. So we'll hopefully have more to say about that at our June meeting. So with that, the only other comment I have is go Warriors and have a good night. The meeting is adjourned.